Welcome everybody on Zoom today for our Live with Nassim Q&A session in the Resonance Academy. And looks like we're live on Facebook now too as well. Yep. So great. Welcome everybody for another session with Nassim Haramein here in the Resonance Academy. A chance for our contributing members to post questions and have some Q&A with Nassim. We do every month. The first Tuesday of every month at this time. And, or is it Wednesday? First Wednesday of every month. And welcome Nassim, good to see you again.
Hi.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
We're also happy to say, just recently got an update from Jamie Janover that we have now over 52,000 people signed up for the Resonance Academy free course online. We're super excited about that. And over 1,000 subscribing, contributing members as well. So we really appreciate everybody participating and coming into the Academy and learning about unified physics and unified science, and most importantly, what it means for our world at this time, because it's another perspective and another paradigm of science and understanding the nature of this reality we're in and the implications of that, which are very important for making changes in our world. So we appreciate everybody participating. Lots of people coming in now from all over the world. And yeah, please put where you're from in the chat for those of you who are on Zoom. And also, this is a Q&A session with Nassim. And if you have a question, there's a Q&A button down at the bottom of your Zoom, at least for my interface, it's at the bottom of the Zoom window. And please just put questions in there for Nassim, and you can put comments in the chat if you would, and refrain from putting comments in the Q&A because that just fills it up with extra stuff that we don't need to read. And you can post science questions and whatever kind of question is coming to mind for Nassim. And it's usually an interesting range and challenge that you guys put forth for us. So let's see. Also, I would say in the chat, be aware that there's an option for either posting to all panelists, which I see some of you are doing now. You're only posting to the panelists right now, some of you. And if you could just go under the setting at the bottom of the chat window, and it will say all panelists and attendees, then you can post your chat to everybody, and everybody will see what you're posting. So that would be good to do. My name is Marshall Lefferts. I'm a member of the faculty of the Academy and on the board of directors of Resonance Science Foundation. And we have Jamie Janover here helping us out to get this on Facebook Live, and David Hyam, who's been organizing the activities of the Academy and these sessions. And yeah, so welcome again, Nassim. And I just wanted to see if you wanted to offer any comments as we enter into the session today and start gathering questions. And we'll see what's here and take it into the question and answer in a minute. But hello again and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's good to be here. And I'm always keen to hear some of the questions that come up. There's always good ones. We have people from all around the world, as you were mentioning. We have 52,000 people taking the course right now, so that's really exciting. You know, it's great to have a community from all around the world. I'm in the middle of finishing a physics paper that's really important, and I'm excited to, you know, share it with all the community. So we're in the middle as well to initiate module 7 and module 8, which will be published in the next few months.
Nassim, is that for the Resonance Academy program?
Yes, for the online course.
Oh, great. I haven't heard about those, so I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, and that will, you know, module 7 will address all of the papers and all of the work that has been done since the course has been written, which really needs to be updated with the stuff we've been doing in the last 5 years, 6 years. And and module 8 is going to discuss this new paper and the findings that are in this paper that are not published yet, but that will be published by the time module 8 is going to be launched. So I'm really excited about that. And you know, getting the numbers that we're getting right now is really powerful, to be able to like transmit all this information to that many people, and then that, you know, hopefully these people in their excitement like connect other people's you know, other people to like this type of information, especially with the module 7 and the module 8, which is really, really critical at this particular time. Basically, this fundamental understanding of unification of our world, and the way it interacts and the way we interact with it has this very powerful opportunity to free humanity from the shackles of energy production, you know, needs for energy production, from what I would define as archaic, you know, you know, archaic technology, burning oil or burning coal or splitting nuclei of atoms, you know, in a violent way to, and trying to contain it. You know, all these things are basically extracting energy from matter after matter was created. And these new physics and this new understanding allows us to start to think of extracting energy from the structure of matter itself, you know, extracting energy from the source of matter, the source of the material world, before it is in that state of matter. So it would be like, it would be like, you know, tapping into a reservoir of energy that's extremely large and immense, and as well, you know, being able to control the forces. Part of what these physics are saying is that the four forces are related to each other, and it gives us the relationship between them that produce the material world. And by understanding these relationships, and since we can control some of the forces, like the electromagnetic force, we can alter the others and control those as well. And that can have very deep consequences. For instance, if you can control the radiative force of, for instance, the decay of atoms, you could take radioactive material and render it stable, for instance, which could be really, really useful right in our world. Other things you could do, if you understand the relationship between the force and the mechanics of these relationships, then since we can control at least one of them, the electromagnetic field, and since they're all related, then we should be able to control the gravitational force as well. And that can be really useful if you are able to, for instance, create a opposing force to the gravitational force, or not necessarily an opposing force, but if you're able to control the gravitational force so that instead of attracting you to the surface of a planet or to the surface of a star, it's pushing you away from it. Or if, in better said, if you're able to create a gravitational field that's pulling you in the direction that you want to go. Basically, you make a gravitational anomaly ahead of your ship, and your ship is literally, you know, falling into that gravitational anomaly as it's moving in space, and it continues to pull you in that direction because the anomaly is moving with the ship since you're producing it yourself. So this has amazing opportunity, but more like technologically, but as well more profound uh, implications have to do with understanding ourselves at a deeper level and understanding our relationship to the universe. And that really can transform the way we interact with ourselves, but as well the way we interact with each other. And that's really critical. I think it's the first step to unification is to actually realize that we're all on the same planet, experiencing this experience together, and that all of our lives are linked and connected. And if the pigmentation of our skin is a little different from one to another, it doesn't change the fact that we are all, you know, uh, connected and unified in this faith of our society, of each, you know, of our lives, and how our lives are functioning. That's really the first step, is to unify, you know, our capacity to um, to have empathy with for each other, to realize we're from the same source and that we have, you know, the same ambitions, which is to be harmonious with nature, be harmonious with the universe, raise our family, love each other, and so on. And so this this is really the first step to unification, the first step to this possibility that's offered to us. All the technological and intellectual and theoretical knowledge is there. Um, if we make that choice to unify and to transmute or transform or transcend this moment in our society, uh, and really step up to the next possibility, and that is, you know, an opportunity that has been there for a while. For instance, our capacity to produce energy from sources that are outside of the current conventional sources, including wind and solar, has been there for a while. Um, the the institutions and the system we're in is not being very um, very helpful, let's put it that way, in getting this kind of technology out. And actually, I'm sorry to say, in the last few weeks, we've lost another one of our colleagues that has been working on these type of technologies, and that that's that needs to be transcended, and it needs to, you know, uh, this type of exploration and this type of achievement in our society should be encouraged and supported, and it's really important that people understand that there's been a certain amount of censoring, a certain amount of, uh, of stopping of this type of technologies. And, you know, by people's participation and, you know, in this program, for instance, and becoming members of the foundation by supporting us in many different ways that people support us, every little bit makes a difference and makes it possible and opens the possibility for us to do this. And so it's critical that we get 100,000 people taking the course, that we get 1 million people taking the course, that we get, you know, that we get 50,000 people becoming members, because this gives us the power to move forward and to do this exploration and to continue to publish papers that are significant and bring technologies that are important into the world. And so, you know, I want to encourage people to do this. As well, we have a lot of other exciting stuff coming out. We have Thrive 3 that's coming out.
Thrive 2.
I'm sorry, 2. I'm already ahead of the game. Thrive 2 is coming out. Yeah, I was thinking about Thrive 3 yesterday, and I think it just came out.
Not quite ready to take that one on, but yeah.
And then we have many other things, including, you know, Gaia is releasing an episode of Quantum Revolution every week. I think we're at episode 6 or 7. I don't know at this point, but I think people have been enjoying.
Episode 9.
I'm sorry?
It's up to episode 9 now.
Episode 9, you see, I'm falling behind. I'm gonna have to, you know, keep up. Listening to myself is always painful, but I'm always excited to see, you know, what Gaia did with the interviews. And so far, I've been really excited and impressed. It's wonderful. And I think it's really broken down in pieces that makes it fairly easy to understand and to follow. And you know, all these things, when you study them and you understand them, it changes your consciousness. It changes the way you think about things and the way you think about yourself and all this. And it's like planting seeds, and they grow, you know. And so it's really important that actually, you know, it's always hard to listen to yourself, but I enjoy listening to the information, because even as I listen, although, you know, I've been doing this for 30 years, even if when I listen, I make new connections and I see new things every time. And so I'm growing too as we're discovering all this together, and it's powerful. It's transformative, it's powerful, and it helps me reach greater depth into myself, into my understanding of the world. So yeah, so we got a lot of things coming up, and I'm working really hard on the paper, and I'm excited about it. And, you know, writing a physics paper is can be painful, especially a paper with this large of a, you know, encompassing subject. You know, unification of physics is very large, you know, circle to put your arms around. And the complexity can get very high, and it's not necessarily obvious how to, you know, because it's unifying. It has a lot of circular motions in it, if you'd like. Not that the equations are circular, like in terms of their rigor, they're not. But the way the information is floating, it's this complex relationship between all the information, and to put it into a linear form that somebody can follow, and not get lost is challenging. So it's taking some time, and but the formalism is beautiful, and what we found is beautiful, and it's very precise, and it's saying something deep that many more papers will need to be written on it. This is really like a really good foundation for it, but it's saying something deep about relationships, of scales and forces that that clearly shows that really it's all one thing, and that it's like the gears of that one thing, and we've called the gears different things, right? Because they seemed unrelated, for instance. And that's one of the complications in writing that paper, is that I have to work within the convention of what has been written before, right? So gears that are linked together, that may have been called gravity and electromagnetic fields and the weak force and the strong force, were described separately as if they were not part of the same gearing system. And so when you put the gears together, then these definitions change. And you start to see that it's like, it's not four forces, it's just a fundamental pattern of flow of information. It's a fundamental pattern of pressure relationships in the flow of information of the universe. Now, when you start to describe the forces in terms of flow of information in the universe, in the quantum field, then the boundary between one definition and another of these forces become blurry, because these definitions are somewhat artificial. And so you have to, because they've been defined not knowing that they were all the same thing. So to rearrange that so that the gears mesh and they all work together and everything flows, and the reader can understand, the conceptual notions without being too jarring to the previous definitions, is challenging. But it's coming. It's coming very well, and it's exciting. And definitely, will lead to a whole new development in scientific inquiry of our world, of the material world, and eventually of the instances of consciousness and awareness, how the information flow across the scales, what are the forces that defines them from one scales to the other, and then how is the information complexity eventually produce self-awareness or feedback. And that, it's nice to see it come out. It's nice to see it emerge.
Great. Wow. That is a all-encompassing opening statement. Yeah, I mean, really, you spoke to the importance of understanding this, getting it into the world, so more and more people can have a more clear understanding of the nature of our experience of reality, and as well, the implications of what that means in our world, some of the technological shifts, and then ultimately that unification. And I think one of the interesting aspects of the challenge that you're highlighting there with the paper is, in a way, it requires turning on a different part of your mind to be able to think holistically and sort of transcend parts to look at the whole. And for many people, especially in academia, who haven't really been studied in that or exposed to it much, or certainly trained in some way in that. And especially given the entrenched definition space that is what's being worked with there. I can see that would be quite a challenge to figure out a way to use language, use words to convey something that really can only be understood in a more synthesis, a synthesis of ideas as a whole, while using the same language. So
Exactly.
no small feat there.
Yeah, it is. It's like the gear were defined independently, so they don't necessarily mesh together very well.
Yeah.
And the math that mesh them works, however, requires redefinition,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so,
Well, I would say that's very descriptive, I would say, of the transition we're in this planet right now. It's like we're the old paradigm of definition of who we are and what the universe is and our relationship to each other and nature and all these definitions that are really contrived, and they're not true to what's, like you described at the beginning, who we really are, and recognizing that it's this sort of letting go of, being willing to let go of what have been held as very dear ideas or very ingrained ideas, whether we like them or not, to the point where we can start to see that unified perspective and feel it inside of ourselves. Yeah.
exactly. It's like even countries, and boundaries
Exactly.
that were placed artificially, um,
Exactly.
and it's like, yes, there's cultural differences in our world. And so that's like the gears. And
Yeah.
when we see these as completely different, right? The gears don't mesh very well, right? But then when you realize, oh well, yeah, but there's one common thing, right? They're all humans. they all come from the same universe. They all come from the same biological mechanisms, right? They're all humans. They're right. And then you see, oh yeah, those are all gears that, like, it's all like the colors of the rainbow that makes the rainbow, right? Like it's one thing.
Yeah.
Right? But it requires a redefinition. Like the redefinition is like, well, cultural differences, right? Are are only very localized and isolated, right?
That's right.
And that and but they're part of a whole, right?
Yeah.
You could say the human culture, if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you imagine as soon as we go off planet, just how local it really gets.
Right.
It's like, wow, it becomes extremely local. What we hold as these big, enormous institutions of our belief systems suddenly become very centric to one little planet.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, it's perspective. And I think a lot of it is the reorientation of perspective is what we're really talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. In our social structures and in our financial structures and so on,
Totally.
It needs to become more clear that we're part of a human community, and our social structures and our financial structures should be there to promote the human community, so that all members of the human experience are having are supported and are encouraged to continue to grow and to continue to be creative and so on, and in order to do that, some of the basics have to be there, including a more appropriate repetition. Can you say that? Repetition of resources, so that resources are shared across the human structures so that, you know, everybody can move forward and everybody can participate in a positive, constructive way. And that will, you know, that I think we're finally moving towards this. It's becoming more clear. Um, and we have to develop the correct structures, the correct gearing system, the correct meshing, so that that can happen. And I think that's what we're doing. So it's a little bit like the transmission, you know, is grinding a little bit right now. But hopefully we can put it in gear.
Gonna tune it up.
And tune it up, push the clutch and get it in gear. And go to the next speed, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. I believe we're at that time. I also just, before we go into the Q&A, I just want to mention again, I'm super excited about the upcoming launch of Thrive 2, which is going to be released on September 26th. So that's just over 3 weeks away. It's a film that I've been directly involved in creating with Foster and Kimberly Gamble. And with Nassim's input, we've created beautiful 3D graphics depicting some of the things Nassim was talking about here, about the nature of the field. And I know Jamie put a link in to where you can learn about the film, and it's a Resonance Science Foundation affiliate link, so that when you purchase the film or subscribe to the Thrive On website, which is going to be really cool because there can be a lot of monthly offerings coming along as well with Foster and Kimberly and other people. The Resonance Science Foundation will benefit from that purchase, and that would be just another way that you can help support us while checking out Thrive 2 and supporting that project as well. And Nassim and the unified physics theory are very much featured in the film. So we're super excited about that coming out. All right, Nassim, let's go into some questions here. There's a lot, and I noticed at the beginning, at least, that most of them were very science-oriented today. So I know you like that. But I actually wanted to start with one that I just thought was, you know, relative to what you were talking about in this shift and how some of the old paradigm technologies need to be, you know, obsoleted, and we need to make a transition here. One of our participants named Lisa Lee is asking, what should executives in the US electric utility business know now? And how would you suggest preparing for transition to new technologies for energy production that is coming? So what would the executives in those electrical companies, what do you feel like they should know now, and how might they and we prepare for that shift?
Okay, well, that's a complicated question. I mean, you know, I was put on an island in the middle of the Pacific with many of the energy companies of the world, the big oil industry, you know, energy companies. There was as well, you know, governmental, how do you say, science advisors that were there, and so on. And it was Stephen Greer and I on this island, on this private island with all these people for like a week or 4 days or something. And you know, I was there to address the energy part, and he was there to address the, you know, more universal community interaction part. And you know, I brought some technologies there to show, so that we were all on the same, you know, on the same page about what was coming. And you know, there was many executives. Let's just say that the governmental and military, well, no, the military part of the community that was there was not surprised. You know, they knew about both of these things that Stephen and I was talking about. The you know, some of the executives, we're talking high-level executives from these very large corporations, were shocked. Some of them were excited. And what's important is to realize. So, can you reread the question more precisely, or like I was?
And it's basically, I don't have it in front of me again right now, but it's what would the executives in these electrical companies need to know now?
Right.
What would be the thing to tell them now,
Right.
and how they're to prepare for that kind of a shift?
Yeah. So basically, it's a complicated question, and it basically they should know, first of all, that um, that there is a possibility clearly that that this new technology can be deployed in ways that are very constructive and very compatible with the current electrical grid system, you know, and that most likely initially will be applied that way, and so that this kind of technology is on its way, and it can power. It can be a clear and simple swap, uh, you know, at the nodes of the electrical grid, um, just to change the power source and continue to use the current infrastructure as we deploy the technology eventually, you know, to individual, you know, like houses and cars and so on. But and so they can be a very powerful transition, and that transition, you know, can be like very productive for them, and that they can, so that there's a they can be a smooth transition for from their current energy source to another type of energy source, that this other type of energy source is very similar to what they've been using, meaning it's compatible with the current infrastructure. And so as far as output goes, it's very different in the way it produced the energy, but it's very compatible with what the current structure is. And as well, they should know that their involvement in developing the technology is critical, meaning that they can seek out organizations that work on these type of technology and support them and help them actually get there, because it's in their own interest to actually make this transition as smooth as possible, because it's critical that it happens, and it will happen. And if it doesn't, then humanity is on its way out, you know. So so it's in their own interest, it's in the interest of humanity, and that, you know, it's a very positive thing. And it's like it's not something to fear or to push back against, but it's something to actually embrace. And I think during that week on that island, we were successful in getting most of the people there to embrace it. So it's really, you know, a very, it's a great possibility. There's a smooth transition that can happen, and it doesn't mean the end of their field. Actually, it means the beginning of of a new level of their industry that is much more powerful and can be much more beneficial, both financially and ecologically, for all of humanity.
Yeah, great. That's beautifully said, and I think exactly the most important point to make right now. So
Mhm.
to be open to embracing it rather than feeling threatened
Yeah.
by it, and that there is a transition strategy, I think is very important, because it is disruptive to a particular, an existing industry, or at least the source of that industry, shall we say.
Yeah.
Great. So I neglected to mention that in the Q&A, where there is a capacity to vote with the thumbs up questions up the list here. I know some of you are already doing that with some of the questions here. So we're going to dive into the top ranked ones for a little while here, and then let go of that and just peruse around different questions in a little bit. Also, I wanted to say that I may, we like to bring on people who are posting questions, who are having a little discussion with around it. So I may pull up your video into the Zoom here. And if you'd like to participate, you can just turn your video on. I'm not going to turn your video on. I'll just promote you to a panelist. And if you prefer not to, you can leave your video off and stay quiet, and that's totally fine. It's your choice. But that way we get to say hi and see some of who you are out there.
Yeah, that's lovely. I like to talk to people.
Yeah, great. So the one that's at the top of the list right now, Nassim, is from Laura Masuka. I don't know how to say that name, Laura.
Oh yeah, people can vote on the questions, right?
Yeah. This one has 16 thumbs up. Yeah, this one is quite popular here. The next one has 10, and then there's one with 9. So we got a few to dive into. So this one from Laura, and if you come on, Laura, you can tell us how to say your last name properly. Very interested as a psychologist and integrative psychotherapist in Nassim's ideas of how emotions, their vibration and frequency, can interact with the field. I've heard him speak only briefly about this before. What's our best use of emotion?
Right. That's a good question. Can we find her? That'd be great.
I'm going to do that right now. Take a look
Okay.
and see. Bring up Laura, and Laura, you can come on if you wish, or stay muted and video off as you prefer.
So what's important is to understand, like, okay, state of emotion has to do with what we are doing, like so things happen to us and our.
Pardon me 1 second, Nassim.
Yep.
Excuse the interruption. Keep your train of thought.
Okay.
I'm not actually host, so I cannot promote people up to the presenter. So if whoever is host,
I'll make you host, Marshall.
Okay, that'll be fine. Okay. All right, Nassim.
Okay. Yes. So basically, emotions have to do. I mean, we know what emotions do. Meaning, if you take measurements of your hormones level. Hi, nice to meet you, Laura. You're muted.
Unmute your audio as well.
It's nice to see. Oh, you're in the forest.
I am.
That's great.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see you. Where are you from?
I'm in Northern California.
Oh, right on. Yeah, that would be that kind of forest, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not burnt down.
No, exactly.
So basically, if you, I mean, the state of emotion, that's the thing, is if we've made separations in our science that are kind of biting us. This is a great question because my father was a child psychologist. I spent many years. He worked with Piaget. He was the assistant of Piaget for many years, and there was some deep thinking about psychology and psychotherapy and so on in my home
Hmm.
so when I was a kid. And I remember that you know, I had many debates because there was separations that were being made that I didn't believe existed, and since then it's improved a lot, you know. But basically, you know, the tendencies to look at the emotions without the physiology.
Yeah.
Uh, and then when we look at the physiology, right, we have a tendency to look at it only at the physiological level as defined, right, as defined by the standard model, which ignores the physics or the quantum effect that's below it, right? And so all these separation makes it very difficult to see how emotions are impacting, for instance, the physicality of your reality or whatever. I mean, like, it's how do you connect these things when it's all separated and not, you know, in its own box? And so basically, when you have states of emotions, you can see physiological transformation that are occurring, and they occur very fast, right? They occur actually in precognitive matter. There's tests that were done, right, where people are sat in front of random generators, and the generator has, you know, thousands and thousands of different pictures that brings up emotional response, like sexual pictures, violent pictures, all kinds of things. And there's sensors on the person, and they click the mouse, and there's a delay. I don't remember how many seconds the delay is before the computer picks an image randomly, right? Randomly, like as random as we can make computers. But on the, you know, data that's coming out from like hormone change, temperature change, and so on in the person, you can see that the person is already reacting, right, to the picture that's going to be picked. If it's a sexual picture, they're going to start secreting the right sexual hormones. If it's a violent picture, they're going to secrete the other kind. And so prior to the computer picking the image, right? So it's being shown, now it's preliminary, but it's been shown that that emotions might even be precognitive, or that there's a delay in, you know, in reality, and real time for the universe is like some 6 seconds ahead of you know, what we experience. So but what happened when we have an emotion is that there's a change in our breathing, there's a change in our blood circulation, there's a change in, you know, hormone secretion, and so like spinal fluid change, interstitial, you know, interstitial fluids change that occurs, all these things, pH change. And so all this is saying, like, if you put it in the context of unified physics, all this is saying that there is like your antenna, right? Assuming that consciousness is not some epiphenomena of your brain, right? Yeah, and assuming that the body is actually like an antenna tapping into a field of information. It's like your antenna is tuning to a certain radio station, right, in the field, and you're changing from one radio station to the other, and the dial, right, the radio station could be your brain, but the dial that changes the antenna station is your emotions, right? It's changing your breathing pattern, it's changing your blood circulation, it's changing. So the antenna is literally oscillating at a different rate.
Yeah.
Right? Which is equivalent in a radio to like changing the station. And that really kind of like makes so in that context, that means that by changing or by tuning your emotional state, you can reach different set of information.
Yeah.
And when you look at studies that were done with like as well like opioids and certain various chemicals and like shamanic journeys and all this stuff, yeah, you're creating a chemical change. But what is the chemical change doing? It's changing your state of emotion. This is the part that's always missed. See? So like, for instance, it's the change in state of emotion that gives you access to all this information that you didn't have access to before. It's not the chemicals.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the problem in psychiatry, especially, which is like a lot of drug pushing happens there, because the assumption is that if you change the chemistry, you can resolve the emotional state.
Right.
But that's reversed. The chemistry, if there's an imbalance in the chemistry, is because there's unresolved emotional state, right? So you can't go backwards into it, right? You got to go forward into it. And that's why I say to people, yeah, you can do all these different shamanic things, or you can just change your state of emotion, right? And you can tune in. If you know how to tune in, if you use techniques to tune in, you can tune in. And then, that doesn't mean you don't get angry. My God, I got so angry at somebody on the road last night. I was just like fuming, right? It doesn't mean you get angry. It just means that you are aware that your state of emotion is having an impact on your information flow, and on your capacity to inform the field about what you want and what you don't want, right? And so you might get emotions that are extreme at certain moments, but because you know this, you know how to come back to center.
Yeah.
You know how to come back. And that is like, this is where unified physics informs you, because you can eventually, I haven't done it yet. I've started, right, with the space memory network and all this. I've started to formalize what I'm saying to you right now, so that we can actually understand the mechanisms, right, in which the information flow in the cellular membrane and the relationship to the plant field, how it changes depending on how, the state of how the antenna oscillating structure change, right? And to actually formalize the mechanism of that information is very important. And so, I'm excited to do that. And it's an excellent question.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a good question.
There we go. Unmute myself. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for coming on. Tell me how to correctly say your last name.
Maswika.
Maswika.
It's a Lithuanian last name.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Lithuanian.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. How long have you been in the course?
I've been following Nassim's work for several years. I've been in the course since the pandemic started and you guys opened it up. I was on a call where you announced that and I jumped in.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, fantastic. I so appreciate this information, and addressing the emotions piece is key. Thanks so much.
Thank you for bringing it into your field of work as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to module 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Be great, Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you so much for participating.
I'm so glad to be here.
Are you in practice up north?
Say again?
Are you in practice up north?
Oh, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
It's important right now. People need a lot of support.
Absolutely.
Everybody, including me.
Yeah. Including me too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so good to be able to be together and to support each other, you know, and to like come from the same place
Yeah.
and have a common understanding over such a large population, you know, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then we can start to see things clearly, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people don't need to be done. How do you say? Um, dulled out. You know, people don't need to be. Actually, they just need a little tuning. They need to
Yeah.
tune the emotional state.
Yeah.
It's
So
just
exciting.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you guys.
We'll see you again.
I
Yeah.
appreciate.
Bye. Okay. All right, Nassim. Our next question is from our friend Lalana Rose. Definitely a little change of direction here in the conversation. And this was voted up pretty high. So are there any ancient sites that you have been to yet, are there any ancient sites that you haven't been to yet that you're really excited about exploring? And are you able or interested in discussing your research on the Peruvian elongated skulls, including some of the findings of the DNA analysis you did on them? Are you and your team thinking of publishing about that? So first of all, there are ancient sites that you haven't been to yet that you're really excited about exploring.
Oh yeah, there's a few hundreds of those. Yeah, I got slowed down with the restriction on flying right now, but yes, there's many sites I would like to go to that I'm very excited about, all around the world. Godep Tepe is one of them, and you know, there's many in India I would like to go and see. In Asia, everywhere there's some temples that are not so well known that I'm looking forward to visiting. Hi,
Hi, Nassim.
hi, it's good to see you again.
Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. How you been?
I've been great, great summer. It's a shame though we weren't able to have another summer redwood retreat.
I know.
And especially with all the fires that are going on, I wonder, does anybody know if 1440 made it?
I have no idea. I
Yeah.
don't.
I haven't heard that they didn't, and Teresa is right up the road from there, so I think probably would have heard that, but they were certainly very close in the crossfires.
Right.
You say.
Scary. Well, you know, yes, there's many different sites I want to go to. Some of them are under the water, you know, so
Like Yonaguni,
yeah. Well, yes, that's
the
one.
pyramids under the water, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's near uh, some near in the Caribbean that I would like to go to. They're fairly deep. They're in 2,000 feet of water. So you know, near Cuba, and those.
You all need to get scuba certification in order to go.
Yeah, I'm actually an instructor. You know, and I used to teach scuba, and I used to do. Actually, I developed with Billy Dean, Captain Billy Dean. We were pioneering the deep water air tables. We developed them on Key West, Florida. That's actually in Wikipedia now. But yes, so I actually was diving in Key West, Florida in the 90s for that purpose. I was working, yes, as a scuba diver, you know, instructor and dive master, but I as well was, you know, scouring around trying to find evidence of this ancient civilization that predates, you know, pre-cataclysmic civilization. But Yeah, I mean, there's many places on land as well, in the jungle everywhere. You know, they're finding pyramids under the jungle in Mexico everywhere with the new radar technology. They're realizing that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of pyramids everywhere in the jungle in Mexico that they didn't know were there. And they're kind of blown away with the amount of archaeology that needs to be done, but as well with like trying to reconcile that with the standard model of archaeology, because all of a sudden you needed millions and millions of people to build all this stuff, and they just can't account for that in the current historical narrative. So you know, there's lots to explore there. There's lots to explore in India and in Asia, everywhere. I mean, it's exciting, and I have lots of places I'd like to go. As far as the elongated skull from Nazca, actually, the Paracas skull's DNA has been analyzed. Because of COVID, most of the laboratory that we were employing were closed. So it halted our research. The initial results were very interesting. We are, you know, in the middle of compiling what we had, but we're waiting for further results that have been delayed because of the lab closures. So it's trickling in slowly, but we don't have a complete picture yet to be able to publish. But it's interesting. There is some, you know, there's some interesting results that's showing very strange, you know, genomic behaviors that are not quite associated with humans. However, I'm just gonna leave it at that. We are in the middle of trying to identify if it's because we have, you know, fungi and microbial contamination, right? Because these samples are fairly old in the DNA, or if it's because truly the DNA is not a match, you know, to the human genome. But it's not looking good for a match with the human genome. I mean, it's in the low percentile of 15%, right? But, you know, and a banana has 40% match to the human genome. So it's like not even a banana, right? As far as close to the human genome. So, you know, but we have to do much more study before we can show that, because it could be contaminations from bacteria and fungi, and you know, so we have to go deeper into the analysis. And because of COVID, we've been kind of stopped on that effort, so that's why we haven't published about it yet. But we're excited, and we're looking for more. There's more and more samples that are becoming available, and we're looking at as well, you know, the other problem with this whole thing, and you might know about this, but is that we're trying to match to a genome for humans, right? But we don't know where that genome came from, right?
Right.
Meaning, it's like we say, even if we come up with, oh, it's not extraterrestrial, it matches the human genome, but where did the human genome come from, right? If you look at you know, Crick, you know, one of the best you know, genomic, you know, cellular biologist that got the Nobel Prize for discovering the DNA structure. You know, he wrote papers at the end of his life saying, well, I think actually life, basically what the paper said, which he called the directed panspermia, was that, you know, his conclusion from his life study is that the biology on Earth was implanted by extraterrestrial communities. You know, and this is like a Nobel Prize winner, which like the most venerated, you know, cellular biologist on the planet. So I, you know, so it's a difficult thing, you know, to actually try to figure out exactly what's going on there. But I think we can conclude, at least from the initial analysis, that for sure, some of these calls, like the ones I examined, are not the result of boarding or skull deformation or anything. It was literally a certain, you know, species that were born that way. They were born with elongated skull. They had morphogenical, they had a morphology that was different than the typical Homo sapien morphology, in terms of, like, for instance, the way the jaw was engineered, or the way it grew. You know, some of the features in the face, some of the features in the skull, the number of plates in the skull, and all this just was not typically a match to the you know, to the Homo sapien morphology. So it's very interesting, and I think there is some, you know, more study has to be done. The other thing is, like, these people seem to have been able to go around the world pretty good, because they're found in many different places around the world that are not directly related, considering their antiquity. The ones I examined were 2,400 years old, 2,500 years old, and you know, at the time, they were not supposed to be direct relationship between these, you know, far regions of the world. So for instance, the ones that we looked at on the mitochondria DNA, you know, were from APA groups that are in the Black Sea, right, where similar skulls were found. But the one I examined are from Peru. So how did that happen, right? And so on. So there's lots of mysteries, and the problem is that there's been, you know, some confusion, because there's people out there that are doing hoax and all kinds of things that confuse the issue and make it difficult. And so that's why we're trying to get the best science from the best laboratory as possible, and make sure that we have all our ducks in a row before we publish.
Good, yeah, hopefully they can open those labs up soon.
Yes, that would be nice.
I mean, you can't really argue with DNA analysis, right?
Right. Well, you know, it has to be done properly, because ancient DNA can have a lot of contaminants, right? And they're difficult to extract. You know, there can be a lot of different variables. So you got to make sure that you're very methodical and rigorous with the way you do the analysis. So it's not such a straightforward thing as, like, you doing, you know, 23andMe or, you know, 22andMe, and, like, you know, getting your DNA and figuring out your ancestry, it's more complex. Yeah, it's coming along. I wish, you know, COVID has made it difficult for many things. This is one of them, and but at least we got some of the good analysis prior to the close down, and that looked pretty encouraging.
Great. Wishing you ease and grace. We need to have a spotlight on the truth available to all. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate. Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Take good care. We'll see you soon.
Likewise.
So Nassim, this next one that's been voted up isn't ending in a question. I'll read it though, and you can comment about the gist of what it's saying here. But it's been quite popularly voted up here. So this is from Bodhi Martina about communicating by the quantum network or light language. It says, Nassim, you said last month that SETI is not listening to the quantum channel, and it doesn't recognize the quantum network. If I'm hearing your last live talk correctly, you said the universe gets your thought at the speed of the sub-Planck. Right. This supports what I know about the fact that humanity is receiving information all the time if we are listening. Also, you mentioned that quantum entanglement was being looked at as a form of communication, and there has been success for the transfer of photons from a satellite to Earth using quantum entanglement. We will not need receivers, cell phones, and repeaters in the future, you said. The Bushmen of Australia, the Shuar of the Amazon, and others have communicated without phones before recorded history. I'm excited to find all of this support here, and I really want to talk about the people, including myself, who are receiving communication in this way. I assume it probably says.
Yeah. So, do we have her?
Him or her, we'll find out, him or her, but I'll check.
Him or her, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, there is, yeah, first of all, yeah, I mean, it is absolutely clear that an advanced civilization, you know, would not be using, I mean, if it's an advanced civilization that can travel through their solar system and maybe through, you know, their galaxy, it most likely would not be using the speed of light, right? Because for communication, you know, because actually the speed of light is really slow in the universe. It might seem really fast to us, you know, like, you know, thousands of kilometers per second, but the thing is that the universe is very big, and so you know, for instance, photons, you know, like when you look at the sunset. I was doing that with the kids last week, and we were watching beautiful sunset over the Pacific Ocean here on the West Coast, and you know, you can tell they're my kids, right? One of my kids, as I'm saying, oh, I'm trying to get the older one, you know, which is 14, so, you know, he's a teenager, and he's doing like, oh, he's gonna drag me out of my room to go and see the sunset now. And so, you know, I'm trying to drag him along, and my younger one says, well, you already missed it 8 minutes ago. And I was like, oh yeah, that's correct. You know, because it takes the photons 8 minutes to go from the sun to the earth, right? So we're actually 8 minutes behind what's actually happening. The sun is long set, you know.
Go Sarama.
Yeah, go Sarama, exactly. So Sarama was on it. It's like, yeah, you missed it already, Papa. Just, it's okay, you know. So this this is so yes, so speed of light is slow. It's very slow in the universe. The sun relative to the earth is not very far when you compare to like a galaxy, when you compare to like, so if the universe was to function at the speed of light, um, there would be no possibility for entanglement, meaning we wouldn't be able to observe that two particles, uh, are modified instantaneously, no matter how far they are apart. Like we would see that difference very clearly. Um, so if the particles were entangled, but at the speed of light, we would see that difference, right? Meaning after when we send the two particles away, right? After a few miles, um, when we modify one, the other one would be modified, but at slightly interval from the first one, and we would see that they communicated, but they communicated at the speed of light. Now we don't see that. We've sent particles kilometers and kilometers away from each other and modify them, and it's instantaneous. So we know now instantaneous to us might be just really, really, really fast, right? And I calculated this in my new equations, and that's why I said it's at the speed of the subplonk, because I calculated what the subplonk size is from the scaling law that we've written, right? Because now I have the scaling law, I can calculate how small the the pixel that makes up the Planck would be, and then I can calculate the information speed at that scale, and it's 10 to the 40th times faster than the speed of light. So that's 40 zeros faster than the speed of light, right? So at that speed, the speed of light would look like a brick wall. It would look so slow, like so to go across the universe at that speed is like in millisecond, or less than that, much less than that. It's like in 10 to the minus 20. I can't remember the number exactly, don't quote me, but it's in between 10 to the minus 23 and 10 to the minus 27 seconds to go across the universe at that speed, where the speed of light takes billions of years. The subplonk information is almost, it would look instantaneous to us. So when you have access, like an advanced civilization would clearly have access to this. It would realize that the network information structure of the universe is moving at that speed, and it would tap into that network and use that network for communication, right? Which is the entanglement I was mentioning. And we're starting to get there, because we were able to transfer bits of information from a satellite to the surface using entanglement. So then it's instantaneous or extremely fast, right? And so this I believe is the information network of our world. It's like the universe thinking. That's the speed of thoughts. And so if there's a speed of thoughts, I think it's the speed of the subplonk, right? And it was interesting that as a parallel that when I was discussing the scaling law with the Dalai Lama last year, at one point, well, first of all, when I was explaining the theory and the scaling, I told him about the Planck field, and he said, "Oh yeah, we have that in Buddhism. It's called space particles. We call them space particles." And I said, "Oh yeah, that would be the Plancks." And then he said, "Yeah, but we have something more subtle than space particle." And I said, "What is that?" He goes, "We call them consciousness particles." And I said, "Oh, you know, and it's more, and then I showed him on the scaling law. I said, yeah, that would be the sub-Planck, right? That the speed of thought, right? It's the information of the universe. And it was so neat to see that appear in their own tradition. You know, that they would have that is remarkable. But basically, so, you know, this is the future of communication, you know, for humanity. And yes, since it's the speed of thought, it's possible to communicate this way, you know, thought like node to node between two people that are non-local to each other, right? And most likely people that have been able to get that level of awareness to be able to manage that information flow were able to do that, you know, in ancient time, like many civilizations, like the Aboriginal in Australia talked about it. Are you in Australia?
No, I'm in Baja California.
Okay.
And the signal here is really bad, but I have to first say that listening to one of your videos a number of years ago really liberated me. And so I'm really happy to be here and actually seeing you for not the first time, but talking with you. So what you're saying is so important to so many, I think, people, because we are beginning to hear. And as crazy as that makes me sound possibly, is that for 4 decades I've been receiving information, and they started to tell me, because I'm not a scientist, they started to tell me and teach me metaphorically about the space between objects. And I had no idea what this information was, but they have been telling me and guiding me for all this time. And when I heard you speak about communication and the possibility, it was this affirmation that I wanted for the last 40 years. So it is happening. I just want to say here today that what you're describing is already happening, and it didn't die with the ancient ones. And the people who are still communicating in that way, they really want us to listen, because
Awesome.
they have so much to give us energetically. They have so much clarity to give us, and love. It's the love that comes through you when you speak, both of you, Marshall and Nassim, the love that comes through you when you speak. This is what's being transmitted to us, but we aren't on the right network yet. And I'll bet you that there's a lot of people who are listening to this that have already begun to hear or have been hearing for quite some time, but haven't been given the grounding that you're giving, Nassim. You're giving the grounding reality to us that have been kind of floating around there. I kept it secret for a long, long time because it wasn't safe to talk about it.
Right. Yeah,
So,
I mean, if you start telling people you're hearing voices, there could be some bad consequences. Yes, I know. I had a few of those horrible moments myself. You know, this is the thing. It's like many of the things that people are talking about that are in the spiritual world, you know, like psychic phenomenons and all these things, we can start to understand in the mechanics of creation itself. And when we do, all of a sudden, and I'm so glad I was like the information was able to do this for you, is that it can liberate you from feeling the weight of like, oh my God, I'm going crazy, or like something bad is happening, or, you know, maybe I've completely lost my mind or something. because you start to understand, wait, this actually is the way things work. The universe is communicating, and you know, we can actually interact with, you know, the universe or other beings in the universe or whatever through that network. And you would, and it we might call it spiritual on our little planet because we're confused about higher levels of technology. But actually, you know, it may be actually absolutely high level of technology that this communication could happen,
Yes.
and would happen for advanced civilization. Advanced civilization, like I was saying, would not be sending a signal at the speed of light, you know, from one planet to another. It would just be completely, you know, crazy. You would like say hello, and then you would, you know, it would take a few hundred years before you got a hello back, you know, and then, you know, and so like it's just not gonna work that way. So so they would develop this technology, and since this would be as well the way the information is communicated through the universe, the thinking of the universe, and eventually the emergence of consciousness, using the same channels, technological channels, they could communicate to anybody in the universe, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all
Yeah.
entangled.
Yeah.
And you might be a receiver tuned to that frequency, and kind of like get the communication or get fragment of the communication. You might, you know, this all. And so depending on how much noise is in your channel, you know,
Right.
so it's like it's powerful to start to think about those things as not like esoteric crazy things, but actually as really the way things work and the way mechanics work in the universe.
Yeah. Yes, and where it first came to me was I was actually out in wild nature in the Sierra Mountains next to a wild river, and I was riding. And I really do believe there was something about the energy of where I was, the energy of the water itself coming by so close to me, that it opened a channel. And then continuing on it now, I don't have to be any particular place, but I have to be very quiet and open, and it is usually there. So, but this is over like 40 years that I have been working with this. I really do believe, well, they tell me that everyone has the capability. Physiologically, right now, everyone has the capability. So, as you're talking about knowing this and trusting it, because of the science now, it can be really trusted that human beings have the physiology because our ancestors did. If the ancient ones had this and the DNA is passed to us, wouldn't that be part of that we never really lost it? We just got distracted by by the gears you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't even believe it's possible to lose it. If you're a human being, or if you're any biology, or even an atom, you know, you have access, right?
Right.
It's all working that way. It's just that, like, are you choosing to, you know, communicate? Are you aware that you're communicating on those channels, or you're not, right? You
Yes.
are doing it whether you like it or not. Like, for instance, you know, the 100 trillion cells of your body and all the atoms, the 100 trillion atoms that makes up each one of those cells, they are all communicating this way. Otherwise, the coherency of your body would like go sideways very quickly, right?
Right.
Like, your body is constantly renewing itself and redoing itself and maintaining a certain level of coherency, and it's doing that because it's like very capable of communicating non-linearly, node to nodes, And so you absolutely are doing it, whether you're aware of it or not is the issue.
Yeah.
And so ancient people might have been aware of it more than modern people because maybe they had less distraction, maybe it was part of their culture or whatever. And but it's not anything you can lose. It's always there.
Yes.
You call it your thoughts, you call it, your the voice in your head, like you're constantly talking to yourself in your head. I don't know if people realize that,
Yes.
but you're constantly having a conversation up there, right? Who do you think the conversation is happening with, right? You this, you know, this this whole dynamic of your consciousness is much more complex than just, oh, like I'm self-aware.
Right.
It's got many layers of complexity, and there's definitely a constant information flow that's occurring. And so becoming aware of it is what's really important, because most people are not.
No, because they're doing this with their cell phones.
Well, yes, we
We've been
can.
quite well distracted from
Right,
this
exactly.
course. We've gone very slow tech. Thank you so much, Bodhi Martina, for joining us from
Thank
Baja.
you. This
Baja
has
Bodhi.
been a thrill, really a thrill. Thank you so much, Marshall, too. Also.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So, Nassim, the next question, I think actually you've really largely covered with that question regarding the same general topic of the speed of consciousness. Although you could maybe just speak to how does that tie into then actual travel through cosmic distances? If you have the subplanckian, the speed of thought, and obviously we're not going to be traveling at the speed of light, that's too slow. How do these two things relate?
Well, that's the thing. So when you understand this mechanism, then all of a sudden you realize, wait, so if information can be transferred node to node without linear relationship, meaning that like you can have entanglement at a distance, then and that information can flow through this entanglement because because it's connected through traversable black wormholes. They're traversable because the information is occurring at the subplanckian size. Now, just so people understand, the subplanckian size that was calculated from our scanning log, we're very confident that it's correct because because the same scaling gives the correct answer for many of the different constants and the different scales that we can measure. So that means that information is traversable through these Planck-sized wormholes, meaning that the Planck-sized wormhole mouth is much bigger than the subplanckian scale. So to give you an idea, the Planck is really small, right? If I make a Planck a grain of sand, then the distance from, then the proton would be the distance from the sun to Alpha Centauri, about 40 trillion kilometers. That would be the size of a proton if the Planck was a grain of sand, right? So the Planck is really small. Well, when we calculated the subplanckian size, it gave us an exact value for the Planck to be in the center of the scale. That is, the distance from the subplanckian size to the Planck is the same as from the Planck to the universe. So the Planck ends up in the middle of the scale when you put the subplanckian size in the middle. So imagine the size of a Planck relative to the universe is huge scale difference. immense, incredibly large. Imagine what it'd be to go to the subplankton size. So you can imagine a lot of subplankton can fit into a wormhole of a plankton size, right? A lot of information can be transferred. So this, you know, for the subplankton, the plank would be the size of a universe, right? So, um, so a Planck wormhole is plenty big of a mouth for the information to go through at the subplankton side. So you can imagine that if you realize that, and you can manage the subplankton information flow, you could transfer a set of information from one side of the universe to the other. You would arrive there within like 10 to the minus 23 seconds or something like that, right? It wouldn't take long. Like you don't get to like
No time for a snack on the
no
flight.
snacks, no jet lag, you know. Uh, so you would get and so basically you're just transferring the information that's here into the same information over there. So so that would open up very, very nicely space travel and exploring our galaxy at least, you know, if not our universe as a whole. Simon, you asked a question?
Simon? Yeah, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, Simon, you're muted. Yeah. Oh, you're in Quebec. I've met you before.
No, I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
We did meet, I think, last month or in Zoom.
Yes.
I didn't have the mic on very well, so the sound wasn't good.
Okay.
Yes, and then you were speaking once about this if we were to travel like that, like the possibility of warping gravity.
Right.
Something about when you talk about our hand and the 100 trillion, like moving my hand across, there's 100 trillion cells, there's 100 trillion atoms within each cell. They're all coordinated. And then you talked about like the idea of moving in a craft, that it would be there would be I'm not going to get the terminology right, but there wouldn't be an acceleration because everything would be gravitationally warped.
Yeah, there would be no G-force.
Our bodies would be like, it's hard to imagine, but you've spoken to it. Like we could travel that distance and our bodies would be functioning altogether. Is that because of the gravitational warping that all the cells and everything is happening and there's no pushback?
Well, it's just that, there's no G-force because you're accelerating all the points, right, in the craft at the same time, right? Yeah. So when you feel acceleration, when you feel the G-force, is because the craft is accelerating faster than your body, right? Yeah. So you're getting pushed against the back of the car, right? Because the vehicle is like is accelerating and your body is lagging behind, right? But if you accelerate all the points in the vehicle at the same time, if they're all, you know, warping at the same time, then there's no acceleration for you, right? You're accelerating as fast as the craft is accelerating. Everything is moving together, so you won't feel G-forces. And that's how you can accelerate to the speed of light or past the speed of light and not be completely crushed.
The material that the craft is made out of is the same thing. Then because you don't have to build a craft a certain way, it won't fall apart.
Right. I mean, the whole thing is that the information of the craft and you in it and everything, like that whole bubble of information is being transferred, right? So, so the thing I was saying about the hand you were mentioning is that we think of our hand moving in space, And we say, well, it left point A at that time and it arrived at point B at that time. And so it was going at like 2 miles an hour or 2 kilometers an hour or whatever. And that's only true if you isolate yourself from the rest of the universe, right? All the speeds we calculate, all the things we see is only true if you isolate things from the rest of the universe, right? Because if you calculate the speed of your hand when it left B, when it left A and arrived to B, then you have to calculate as well, well, when you were doing that, the Earth was spinning. So it made a little curve as it moved, right? And then, so you got to add the speed of the Earth. And then, and then while the Earth was going around the sun, so you got to add that speed as well when you were moving your hand. And then the galaxy was spinning with the solar system in it. So you got to add that speed to it. Now your hand is moving at thousands of miles per second, right? And it's like, wait, how did that, so what is movement? We only think of movement relative to us, but what is movement to the universe, to the multiverse? And then, so the only conclusion you can come to is that actually my hand is actually undoing itself here and redoing itself there and undoing itself there and redoing itself there in like sequence, right? Planck time sequence or sub-Planck time sequence, which is way faster, right? And it's like frames of a movie. It appears smooth when you play the movie, but they're all frames, right? It's all quantized. And so your hand and your whole body and everything you see is constantly undoing itself and redoing itself and updating its new position in the universe continuously at very, very high rate. And so if you understand that, then you can tap into that and then you can say, okay, I want, like next time it undoes itself, I want it to redo itself on the other side of the universe instead of redo itself, here in these coordinates. And then you've translated, yourself across the universe. So, that would be the only way to travel in the universe that would make sense in terms of time. But it's not, I'm not saying this in a way to say, oh, that's the theoretical, the only way. It's more than theoretical. We know it's happening, right? We measure it. We know it's entangled. We can transfer information through entanglement already. We know we're going there. It's just so this it's just that we have to rewrite a little bit of the physics so we understand actually what's happening. Because entanglement is in our theories, but there's nothing that describes how it actually happens. It's just been found in our theories, but it's not been described, the mechanics. And now we're discovering the mechanics.
Yeah, and you beautifully, and I've heard this from colleagues that I've shared the Resonance Foundation with. You're and the faculty are able to explain this in ways that we can map on, like the general public, and they can capture that in their imagination and make it more real than entanglement is quantum physics and
it's weird.
Spooky.
Spooky business.
Yeah.
At a distance. Does that redefine? And I don't know physics. I'm an architect, but is that redefine inertia in any way? Like
it does.
It does when you talk about gravitational speed and no acceleration, and
it doesn't redefine inertia. It defines inertia, because in current physics it's undefined. Inertia is not explained in current physics. We don't know in standard physics why why it takes a lot of energy to start moving the fridge And then when it starts moving, it wants to keep moving, right? Inertia is not well defined in current standard physics, but now with this, it starts to make sense. Basically, you know, if you're trying to move an object relative to you, right, in a linear way, you're basically pushing against all of the rest of the entropy of the universe. And we call it inertia, right? It doesn't want to move. It's in relationship to all the other things in the universe, and it's just fine. When you want to move it, you got to put energy in it to like make it change its relationship. And that energy you have to put in to make it change its relationship is what we call inertia. It's like the entropy of the universe. It's like pushing against a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
It's like pushing against the vacuum energy.
Great. Well, thank you, Simon,
Thank you.
for coming on
Thank
today.
you very much.
Yeah, good to have you here. Thanks for great questions.
Yeah, those were good.
All right, we're gonna just pop in a couple more.
Yeah.
Yeah, do as much as possible a quick answer or two.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all fascinating. I'm gonna wait to have Jeff's for the last one, even though it's at the top of the list right now. We will get to that one, Jeff, because it's circled back to your paper. Next one is from James Weinberg. James Weinberg. Is there an event horizon and point of singularity for each human?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say yes, definitely. I need a little more definition, but basically think of every atom you're made of having a singularity, and then think about how these singularities like together, produce a larger one, if you'd like, that we might call like a biological singularity. It's interesting because as we're writing this new paper, we're defining the relationship between the forces, and when we look at their relationship from one to the other, we found a crossing point. We found a point of where they appear to cross over. That is, the confining force of gravity and the strong force, and the radiating force of the weak and electromagnetic force cross over, like the strong gravitation and a strong force is very strong, and then it gets weaker, and then all of a sudden it cross over. And we looked on the graph on the scaling, so when we were scaling these forces, where they cross over, and they cross over in that region where basically you would find large protein structure like DNA. And it was kind of like very amazing to see that happen in the scaling graph for the forces. You would have expected it to be at singularity somewhere like at the Planck scale or whatever, but it was actually more at the biological resolution. So I would say yes, there's a horizon to the, and a singularity that centers your consciousness. If you ask me where that singularity is in the body, then
yeah.
I saw that coming. James, where are you?
Hi, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
All right, on. Oh,
And
there's a piano behind you. You're a musician?
yes, I play the piano
Oh, right on.
and write music
Oh, awesome. What
and
kind of music?
well, I guess
All
it's,
kinds?
well, no, it doesn't have words. Like I have one CD and it's just music, but it's ethereal kind of. I mean, it's with this piano, but it's kind of emotional and it's hard to describe. But it takes you on a little journey. It takes you on a journey. It's got, you know, it's lyrical. It's got,
Wow.
but it's fun. And so I still play around. Even I'm you know, during this COVID, I'm exploring more and more, and exploring you more and more during COVID. This definitely this is a discovery. I mean, it's just, you know, people are going crazy in COVID. I'm one of them, but at the same time, this has been a great period of my life because I've stumbled upon what you guys are doing here. I can't believe it. It just, and I'm going back in time listening to your Q&As in 2017 and y'all went to Egypt. I'm thinking, oh my God, I would have been there if I would have known about it, but I'm 3 years too late, you know?
We'll have more trips. We'll have more trips.
Oh, good. Just the thought of you and the pyramids with the full moon and the groups, and you're there for hours inside resonating with orbs. You know, I just was, I don't know. So I'm really excited about it, guys. Thank you so much. And I am really, I mean, I do have an interest in physics, though I'm not trained that way. And I'm really wanting to, it all is all making sense. You know, I've thought about physics a lot in my life, but this is the first time it's really all making sense. And still I'm trying to sort out the notion of, you know, protons having this notion of the black hole, and we got trillions of them, and yet, you know, from meditation and, you know, I think about singularity as one place or one, you know, when you like how do you go from trillions down to one? And so it's hard to even describe it. I remember one time in my backyard thinking, I'm a black hole. And then that's a ridiculous thought. That was a few years ago. And then now, when I read about protons being black holes, I heard about it. Zach Bush mentioned your name. And I was listening about protons and black holes. And I was like, what is that? And so that's got me on the journey with you guys.
Awesome. But you had that thought prior to studying this.
I did. I had the thought, but I didn't understand it. I had the thought, though, that
you wouldn't be surprised.
Black hole.
Well, that's great. You see, you figured it out. You just had to write the equation for it.
You were right. That's a big gap between that and an equation.
No, but that's the thing. So many people come to those conclusions, even children, right? But you know, that's the thing. So think of it as like a singularity being an effect of space-time in a local region, right? So we tend to think of it as some point of infinite density, which is, you know, is incorrect, right? Mainly, you know, where space-time spins and create coherency, then you end up with singularity at the center, right? And so, so don't think of it. So people say, well, I can't visualize that because I'm like, and that's because you're visualizing your atoms that makes up you as something solid. It's not. It's like space spinning, right? And then that space that's spinning in each one of your atoms, like collectively makes a network of spin, right? That makes the space of your body, of your existence, including outside your body and inside your body, spin as well. You see? And then the center of that spin is like your spinal cord, right? And this and and all these like points of energy that people call chakras and all this are like, you know, the singularity that's elongated on a shaft. And you know, and so
Like a
basically,
rainbow is.
huh?
Like a rainbow is light that's been elongated out.
Right, exactly. Like the fragmentation of light, like the spectrum of light across your body. And that is the center shaft of singularity of your existence. You know, but so it's not like, and it would most likely be centered around your heart, you know, around your chest area and your hara, your center of gravitational center of your body, right? And Walter Russell called it the shaft of light, you know, that centers your existence. And if you so you know, people say, well, you know, like, why is the singularity like, why is the singularity of like a black hole weighs like millions of tons, you know, and like, what do you mean I have a singularity in me, right? I don't weigh millions of tons, you know. Well, you know, if you, depending how much McDonald's you eat, but like, you know,
Don't eat.
but I'm just saying, you know, it's not relative to weight, because weight is relative to each other, right? So do you understand what I mean? So it's relative to energy. So I'll give you an example. There's some studies that suggest that there's a little bit of like 21 gram or so that disappear when you pass, right? That's not accounted for. That seems to be supported by other studies that I've been involved in like measuring people's weight when they sleep and so on. And then, so basically, you could say maybe your singularity, your consciousness, right? That's the information of your existence, the event horizon of your existence has an energy density of, let's just say 21 grams, right? Well, if you do E equals MC square on the 21 gram, right? You got enough energy to run like all the nuclear power plant on the planet, right? So you see what I'm saying? So it's not because it's high energy that it will translate literally to weight, right?
Okay.
So because it's a relationship. So basically, you can think of it as like the amount of energy of your existence, like all the knowledge you hold and all this, is like a set of information. And that set of information is defined by a boundary condition, right, in the space that's you, right? And that boundary condition has information that no other boundary condition has, right? Your fingerprints are completely different, right, than anybody else on the planet. There's not one person. And if you burn your finger, right, not too bad, or if you scrape your finger and you remove the fingerprint, when they regrow, they will regrow the same. They're not all of a sudden gonna be other fingerprints, right? They're not gonna be somebody else's fingerprint, because it's a very specific set of, it's a singular set of information in the universe, right? And it's held by a singular information, you know, energy field. And that energy field is you. And so your physicality, the way you are, the way you think, the way you interpret the world and everything is actually what's producing that, the space organizing into your body. and giving you the iris that is going to be exactly you, right? Is going to represent your set of information and, you know, the way you are and everything you are. And that set of information has been going through millennia of evolution to get to that, right? All your ancestry, all your genealogy, all this, right, is playing a role in that set of information. It's a continuum of information growing and exchanging and learning. So basically, you're representing a singular thread of information to infinity, right? And you're the expression of this in the structure of space.
And the information is on an event horizon, like my event horizon, and you've got your event horizon, and Marshall has his.
Right. The event horizon is more complex than just a single surface, right? It has, you know, levels of surfaces. It's more complex than just one thing. For instance, there's the thermal event horizon around your body, right? There's the, like, thermally, you're burning at 100 Fahrenheit 24/7 for all of your life, right? If it varies by a few degrees, you're not having a good day. So there's the thermal event horizon. There's the physical event horizon, right? Which, like I was saying, is defining you very specifically. Like the set of information on your horizon is very specific to you. And so there's that event horizon. There's as well the event horizon of your influence in the space, right? Like when you're exchanging information, your influence in the space, like how big is the vortex you're making in the space, right? That's gonna define another event horizon, right? So there's different, it's like onion peels of event horizon. There's different layers of your event horizon, like, you know, different, like the spectrum of light of event horizon, if you'd like, right? And then ultimately, since it's all linked through singularities and wormholes and all this, you could eventually bring your event horizon to like be the event horizon of the galaxy, or be, you know, the event horizon of the universe. You could experience the event horizon of, you know, a galaxy or a universe, right? Because you're part of the same wormhole network structure. You can expand your consciousness, you can expand your awareness past the event horizon, like that is external to you, by going internal to you, because you're connected through the internal event horizons, right? And then, so you can expand your awareness to a galactic awareness, for instance, right? And if you expand your awareness to a galactic awareness, that's why I say to people, go galactic, you know, when you expand your awareness to a galactic awareness, then when you look back at the Earth from the galactic awareness, it looks very different. You know, it looks very different. All of a sudden, all your little difficulties, all the you know, that
infinitesimal.
Right, and it transforms. So I would say absolutely yes to your question. We are part of the singularity, even only through the black holes of our protons and electrons, right? That makes up our existence.
Well, I want to continue to try to resonate with it. I am working with your
oh, wonderful.
And hoping that helps.
It does.
It does, yeah.
It's scientifically proven. So you can let go of hope.
Yeah.
It does.
I've been working with it for a few weeks now, drinking the water and drinking and just.
Yes.
Good.
Do you feel some effects?
Well, the first time I put it on, it felt, there was some intense, and I took it off because it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
and I'm just working now with water, where I'm doing the water, I'm drinking it and just kind of taking it a little easy. But for this Zoom call, this is the longest I've had it on since I've had it for a few weeks now.
Yeah. At first, you have to get used to it.
And I feel like, it does feel like I'm connecting in with a community, and to think about, wow, you've got 50,000 people thinking about this now. And I thought, oh, right, this will help, because it's a bit isolating, to start, it's hard to start talking to my neighbor about this stuff.
Right.
Friends for that matter. So it's, and so it's just good to have this community, and I'm so appreciative of you guys and all the free course. That's just spectacular that you're doing something.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here today and sharing your questions, and look forward to hearing your music too.
Yeah, exactly. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Nassim, that I know I'd said to Jeff we'd ask his question, but I think we'll start with that next time because we'll circle back to your paper. And we're past our 2-hour mark now. So
yes,
that was a great place to end anyway. Like the ultimate conclusion in a way. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's really important, as we get closer as well to this end of the year, with everything that's going on in the world, it's really important that people continue to march forward with, confidence and knowing that this is all leading to something fantastic, to something remarkable, that it's not in vain. What's going on in the world today it's gonna resolve to something remarkable, and it's the growing pain, it's the birthing pain of a new civilization, and we are the precursors of this transformation. We're the people that are helping, bring this transformation, first of all for ourselves, and then for the people around us. So it's important to stay in that optic, in that vein, and communicate with each other and support each other. And this is why we're building this community, and as well, so we can learn from each other. This is important, there's so much more, like what James was saying, it's like, who can you talk to about this stuff, right? Well, all of us, are here in this community to support you, but as well, the fact that people can go and take the course, so you can just direct them to the course, and then you can see, and then you can discuss it with them afterwards, and then, report back what you find and all this. And this is the time we must unify. This is the time we must come together, see past the differences and see the commonality of our adventure, of our endeavor on the earth. And that is really critical to keep in mind, and know that we are supported, we are going in the right direction, and this transformation is going to be powerful. In the months to come, it's going to be up to us to be the strong ones. And so I encourage people to stay positive, to stay, it's more than staying positive, it's a knowingness that this evolution is critical and necessary, and to be in that place where we're aware of what's going on, but we're staying, open and positive for the transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't say it better. I think that's exactly what's most important right now, is to really center ourselves in that knowing and stand in conviction that this is true and right and the appropriate timing, and call it forth, you know, really like take that stand in the world. And that's of course what we're doing here
Yeah.
at the Resident Science Foundation and with the community of people. So
yeah, and educate yourself and think about things and debate it, you know, and all this, and participate. And if you can become a member, that's great, because that really helps us. And then, you know, we can all grow together. So
yeah, and there's the online forum. Probably most all of you are already active in there, and if not, go check out resonancescience.org and log in, and you get to the forum. And like Nassim said, become a contributing member. It's as low as $5 a month, and that does make a big difference for us. And the more people that take that stand with us, it really does help us. So we really appreciate everybody coming today here on Zoom and on Facebook Live. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Nassim, as always, for taking the time. And back to that paper.
yes,
We're all so eager for it. Like, yeah, let's get that out.
yeah, I gotta get back to it.
Especially with Thrive coming out, you know, there's gonna be quite a lot of exposure. So it's gonna be a great follow-up to that.
Right.
All right, well, have a great day, everybody. And lots of love and appreciation. Be in gratitude and be in your joy and be in your love. And take it away, Nassim.
Yeah. Until next time, may the vacuum be with you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.